tell me your name.
My name is John Montgomery.
All right. And I'm going to zip through your first 18 years real quickly.
Okay.
So tell me like where you were born and kind of grew up. And
I grew up in Junction City, Kansas. Graduated from high school in '43. From there I went straight to the service.
All right. So did you play sports or anything? And what was your...
I played football, ran in track. Tried to play basketball, but I couldn't do that. Wasn't big enough.
Yep. So that's still your home. Where do you live now?
We live in Lawrence, Kansas.
And so do you still have family or anything where you grew up?
No, there's no one left. They have all passed away.
All right. Tell me what happened after you graduated high school.
Okay, I went to work out at Fort Riley in an armory because I was 17. And when my 18th birthday approached, my grandfather told me, go join the Navy. He said, don't get in the Army.
Why is that?
Well, he'd spent 34 years in the Army. So, being that I was 17, I couldn't join. And my dad wouldn't sign the waivers for me to get in, but my mother did.
Really?
So I joined the Navy when I was 17. And thankfully, the guy that was enrolling me in the Navy, he said, what do you want? You want regular Navy? Do you want a kiddie car cruise? What do you want? I said, well, I guess regular Navy. And he said, no. He said, you don't want that. You take the kiddie car cruise. And I said, well, what's that? He said, well, that's a year and extended as long as there is a war. I said, okay, I think that sounds better. Because the other one was 6 years.
So so what year would this be?
That would be 1943.
Okay, so we're well underway in the war.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, you know, when we graduated from high school, we knew where we were going. There wasn't any ifs and buts or buts about it. You were going in the military.
Right. It was just a decision of which one, and you're directed toward the Navy.
Right.
Okay.
And I asked my granddad, I said, why do you tell me to go to the Navy? He said, just remember this. The Army does all the work. The Marines get all the glory. The Navy gets all the pay. I said, I'll take the Navy.
Great. Was he correct?
Yes. Yes, because when I was in the Navy, then flying off of an aircraft carrier, we got 50% what they call flight skins, meaning our base pay plus 50%, plus 10% for being in wartime waters, plus 20% for flying off a carrier. So I was making my base pay plus 80%. So he was right.
Very nice. Very good. Okay, so you have the conversation with the recruiter.
Yes.
And then you signed up, and tell me what happened.
From there, I went on a train. An old coal-fired train went clear down to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and from there we went clear up the west coast to Bremerton, Washington. And from there we went over to a place that is now a beautiful resort area, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And that's where we took our boot camp, they called it.
So describe to me what boot camp was like.
Boot camp was hell. You marched every place you wanted to go. You were up in calisthenics and close order drill and cross country running and just everything they could think of to try to get you in a physical condition that you were going to have to face.
I guess it worked, right?
Yes, it did. It did work.
Let me ask you a question. This is more of a big picture question, but especially at that time, before the United States won World War II, or the Allies won World War II, the United States was not a superpower in military terms. Was there something different that the United States did as far as the training or the military? I know I'm asking an ambiguous question, but what was the military like in your knowledge compared to other Western country, other Allied countries?
Well, we were so far behind in arms and everything. I can remember we used to go out to Fort Riley and watch them, and they had cut out tanks and cut out trucks, and were using wooden rifles. It was just pathetic. There just wasn't any equipment whatsoever.
Who was the world leader at that time, military-wise?
Oh, Stalin.
So or the Russians.
Yes. Well, he and Hitler both. Yeah.
So what is it that changed for the United States to become the superpower it did?
Well, I think personally that Franklin Roosevelt just put the B on all of the manufacturers and said, you will do this, you will produce, and they did. They really did.
And this was during World War II?
Yes, yes. Yeah, you know, they were like aluminum. They were asking the civilians to contribute all the aluminum pans and everything, and paper and what have you. I can remember when I came home on leave one time, Dad had sold some tires to an agency that was collecting tires. He got $1.03 for 6 tires, and he had that framed and had it hung on the wall.
Well, I mean, he was proud of his participation.
Sure.
In the big picture.
Yeah, and during the war, my dad was one of the supervisors out at Fort Riley on prisoner of war. German prisoner of war, Italian prisoners of war. And I can remember asking him, I said, well, you know, did they get along? And he said, no, they did not.
Who's they?
The Italians and the Germans.
Oh, okay.
They did not get along. And in this German group were Nazis. And there were other Germans that were not. And the Nazis tried to instill into the other Germans to not obey orders and to resist everything that was possible. And they used to fight. Dad said there'd be 3 to 5 guys found dead every morning.
Wow. So the United States, the Allies were not fighting, so they were fighting German Nazis and Germans?
Yeah, yeah.
Describe to me the difference between those two then.
Well, the German Nazis were worshippers of Hitler. The regular German people, or the German guys, were not. They did not. The only reason they were fighting was to save Germany. And they had nothing to do with each other.
So the Germans had no intentions of taking over the world with the Nazi way of thinking.
Well, the Nazis did. They wanted to take over the world.
But the other Germans did not.
Other Germans did not.
They just wanted to
fight. All they wanted was save their country.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was very, great with those people that they would do that.
And you have respect for that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I never realized there was a difference.
Yeah. In fact, there are many occasions they found that when the Allies would overrun a German encampment that they would find Germans handcuffed or chained to machine guns so they could not retreat. These weren't Nazis, these were Germans were doing this. They mean the Nazis didn't want their own there, so they put the Germans up there.
Wow. Wow. I love World War II history.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any idea about that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, we're going to be taking a lot of left turns and right turns, I'm sure.
Okay.
Which is fine. Let's go back to boot camp. Any more about boot camp? And you were there for how long? And
We were there for 8 months, I think it was.
That's
And
a long time.
it was a military training, course order drill, marching, learning to respect orders and to carry out orders, and just basically to get along with your fellow man, because you were going to be in close quarters like that till the end of the war.
Yep.
And I made a lot of good friends in boot camp. I also I had saved up some money because I knew when the end of boot camp came that we were going to get a leave, and I wanted money to travel home. So I was sleeping in a top-decker bunk, and I heard this noise, and I woke up, and here was a guy breaking into my locker to steal my money. And we wore those big old boondocker shoes, and mine were hanging on the end, and I just grabbed one of those shoes and I conked him on the head and knocked him out.
But he was one of your fellow soldiers.
Yes, yeah, that son of a gun. But they knew I was saving money. Now, I didn't ever think that one of them would try and steal it from me.
Did he get in trouble for that?
He got in trouble, yeah. He got sent to the brig. But he should have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So, anything more about boot camp before you have your leave?
No, not really.
So, other than getting in physical condition, any specific training that you got in boot camp?
No.
Just the basic.
Biggest thing was learning how to obey orders to the nth degree, whether you agreed with them or whether you didn't. And of course, a lot of it we didn't agree with, but we did it.
Which is the purpose.
That's right. That's the way it was.
What about firearm training?
No, none.
Really?
Uh-uh.
8 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Never picked up anything but a wooden rifle to put on your shoulder and march with.
Wow. Okay, 8 months comes and goes, and you get your leave. What happens?
Well, at the end, we took, I guess you'd call them evaluation tests. And it was really, I think, an IQ test. And then you put down your preferences of which branch you wanted to go in. Fortunately, I didn't get the one I had listed first. I had listed first submarine. Second list I had was the Air Force. They put me in the Air Force instead of the submarine, thankfully.
Do you know why you did not get submarine?
No, they never told you that or anything.
Yeah.
I guess, certain kind of guys with certain mentalities were the ones they selected for that. That's the only observation I had as to why.
Mm-hmm. So you, I guess, graduate from boot camp?
Yeah.
Okay, so you graduate from boot camp and you go back home?
Yeah, got to leave.
For how long?
What was it? 10 days.
Oh, short.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we went back and we got on a train, went through Minneapolis, clear down to Orlando, Florida.
And you're going into the
Air Force.
Into the Air Force. So you
Yeah.
didn't get the Navy.
Well, it was the Navy Air Force.
Got it. Okay.
At that time, there was not just the Air Force. There was the Army Air Force, there was the Navy Air Force. And that was combined later on into the Air Force.
I understand. Okay. So you're in the air, you go to Air Force, down, and you're on a train down to Orlando.
Right. And there, you speaking of shooting, we had to go out and qualify by shooting a 12-gauge shotgun, and you had to average 18 out of 25 hits. And some of the guys had never seen a shotgun, let alone shoot one. And as a result, a lot of them flunked out. But, you know, me being from the Midwest, I was used to shooting a shotgun, and I didn't have any problems qualifying for 18 out of 25. But boy, we had to shoot 100 rounds a day. And those stocks, there was no pads. It was just a straight arm that's there. Boy, my shoulder was black and blue by the time we got through. And then they put us in a gunnery situation. It was a seat that you sat in and you had your straps on and everything, and you controlled the movement by a handle. And they would shoot up clay pigeons from any direction, and you had to swing that thing over and shoot and try to hit it. And I know we pulled one on this kid from New York. His name was Cyril Tadaro. He'd never shot a gun in his life. So we told him, now, Si, get your chin right down there on that gun, sight it in real good and hold on to it. Pow! Hit him in the mouth.
You still have all his teeth after all that?
Yeah, but he was bloodied.
I'm sure. So at that point, you said you had the group that could shoot those numbers, and then that could not shoot.
Yeah.
Now you're with the group that could shoot.
Right.
So this is kind of the experienced gunners?
Yes.
Okay. So you've got the experienced gunners. Now, you're still in training, obviously. What is this training called?
Let's see. Aerial, I think it was just called aerial training. We not only shot the shotguns, but we went to a big movie screen. It was a 180-degree screen, and you sat in a seat with a machine gun, and the planes would come in from the movie, I guess it was.
Projector?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you had a gun and you triggered, and everybody had a different color, and so when you trigger it, if you hit, then you recorded your hits, and that was kind of fun.
It's like you played the world's first video game.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's still to this day, shooting
Yeah.
guns, and that's in
Yeah.
video games today.
Yeah.
You played the first video game.
I didn't think about that.
There you go.
How about that?
So what anything more on that kind of training or other?
Yeah, we then they put us on a truck platform, and you had a machine gun, and they'd drive this truck 50 miles an hour down the road, and there'd be objects out on the side that you tried to hit as you were going by.
Is this with real ammunition?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and your bullets were painted. The tips of the bullets were painted in a certain color, so that when the run was over, they could tell who had so many hits. I set a record on that one.
And what kind of record? Do you remember the numbers or?
I don't remember the numbers, what it was exactly, but I know I beat everybody in my squadron hands down with it.
with your accuracy.
Yeah.
So you're very accurate in.
Well, and you know, I got to thinking about that later on, and I think part of that was the fact that I was a quarterback in football team and threw passes, and would, you know, have to learn how to lead the guys and so forth. And I think that really helped me with that training. That part.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I hadn't thought about that until years later, and then it finally dawned on me as to why that could have occurred.
So shooting with accuracy was something that came naturally to you.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. And then later on, we went up in the airplane, and there was another plane pulling a long sleeve. It was a canvas-like contraption, and you, as you went by, you shot, and again, your bullets were colored, and they could tell the number of hits and misses you had. And the thing about free gunnery is there was no cutoff. In other words, if I didn't stop and kept going with those machine guns, I could have shot my tail off. In fact, one of the guys from Texas did just that. He got so engrossed on shooting and hitting that target that he kept on going, and he shot his tail.
There was no safety barrier that kept you from hitting your own tail.
No.
Okay, do me a favor now. You've described, you know, training on the ground with the video game, with the truck going by. You've now gone into the air to do some training.
Right.
Any other type of training that you did before you got into, I guess, real world?
Okay, from there we went down to a place called Cecil Field, Florida. I don't think it exists any longer. It was close to, can't think, Jacksonville. And from there we learned, pilots and we learned, they had a runway marked off like it was a carrier, and you landed on it, and you went in the air, and you did learn how to do cross-unders. In fact, that was where we had our first fatality, was we were doing a cross-under, and they hit us, we got hit and crashed, and the plane that hit us, the pilot and the gunner both got killed.
What is a cross-under?
Well, you fly in a formation, you've got three planes. You got one here, and one over here. So this, if the cross-under, you go over here like this and get on the other side. And that's a formation that you use in dive bombing, because the lead plane goes down, and then the second plane goes down, and then the third plane goes down.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
And it was I kind of laugh about it now, but when he hit us and we crashed, they came out with the ambulance, and neither one of us were hurt. And the first thing they gave us was an ounce and a half of brandy and a cigarette.
Congratulations, you survived the first crash.
So there we did that, and then we went into learning, the pilots learning on dive bombing, how to perform and how to maneuver the plane and so forth. And the gunners, we had to score the hits. There was a big target down there, and you scored on the number closest to this bullseye center that you could get. And we had to mark, we had a chart, and we had to mark where our pilots had dropped the bombs.
So let me clarify kind of a big picture now. Now, you're considered a gunner.
Yes.
Okay, and there's a pilot. You're not flying anything.
No.
Okay, is there a co-pilot?
No. Just two of us.
Two of you, and so the two of you are really a team.
That's right.
Okay, and so you would communicate, obviously,
on the intercom, always. I was to inform him of anything behind us or to the sides of us. That was primarily my job.
Now, was there, even though he's the pilot, would you be considered the main person in charge of that airplane, or was it the pilot, or was it a team? Or
It was a team.
okay,
Yeah.
because you had the same goal.
Yes.
You have very different functions.
Yes.
Pilot and co-pilot, they're, here's number one, here's
Right.
number two.
Right.
But you guys have very different functions, and you've got to work together, or else you can't do your job, and vice versa.
That's right.
Okay, describe to me the relationship you had with, I guess, did you have multiple pilots?
No.
Or is it,
We were assigned one pilot, and you became very close, just like almost like brothers.
who was your pilot?
His name was Simonson. He was from Chicago.
And how long did you guys work together?
We worked together until he and his wife were going back to base one night, and he had a flat tire, and he was out changing that flat tire, and a passenger came by and hit him in a car, and didn't kill him, but it physically damaged him. He couldn't fly any longer. So then I got a fellow by the name of Armorsall, and he and I stayed together until the end.
So how many years with your first pilot and how many years with your second?
The first pilot I had him was about 9 months, and the second pilot I had was about 2.5 to 3 years.
Did you maintain communication with them
No.
after?
No. Did not. There's always in the Navy, and I suppose in every other part of the military, there's always a very strict division between enlisted personnel and the officers. There is no coordination privately between the two.
So one of you was an enlisted, one was,
When I was an enlisted man, the pilot was an officer.
so in actuality, he had more, I guess, seniority, or?
He could command me, period.
Okay.
But I have to say this. When we were out at sea at a Christmas time one time, my pilot and another gunner's pilot invited us to their quarters, and we had hors d'oeuvres and drinks and so forth, and so there was a communication between the two, and yet as an enlisted man you knew where that line was.
And it's part of the chain of command.
Yeah.
That has to exist.
That's right. That's right. We didn't,
It's
we
just the
didn't
way-
object or anything else. I mean,
It's just the way
that's
it
just the
was.
way it was. Yeah. In fact, you'll laugh at this, but we had one of the guys in our squadron had a real good friend that was a Marine, and he was stationed aboard our carrier. So he gave this guy the word that there was going to be an inspection, and that all private liquor was going to be confiscated. So we went to the pilots, and we told them, well, now look, they're going to come and they're going to get all your booze, but for every 5 bottles of yours that we hide, we'll keep 2.
It's a win-win.
So they agreed, because otherwise they were going to lose everything.
That is awesome.
Of course, they didn't come down into the enlisted man's quarters and check to see if we had any booze. Because
And of course you didn't.
No, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
In fact, one night, there was a guy from Washington, D.C., that he was just opposite of the regular naval officers. His name was Moon Mullins. And one night we were down by Anahuac, hotter than blitzing, and we were sleeping on the flight deck. And all of a sudden, this F6F fires up.
What is that?
That means the airplane engine started.
Gotcha, okay.
And we thought, what in the world is going on? So we got up, about blew us off the deck. We got up and got to the plane and grabbed the rudder and shook it. And he slammed it down a little bit. And we got up and there was Moon Mullins. He drunker than a lord. He said, get in, guys. Get in. I'm going home. The hell with this. Get in. Get in. Well, there was only one seat. And, you know, we said, Moon, you can't do this. You're going to get court-martialed. Ah, hell with him. Well, we hit him and knocked him out. And we had a guy named Bill Myers that was a spitting image of him. So Bill runs down to his officer's deck and gets in his bed. And he no sooner got into bed than the officer of the day come along with a flashlight, put it in his face and turned it on and said, inhale, exhale. Checking to see if he had any whiskey on his breath.
No way.
So, boy, I mean, from then on, we were the bosom buddies of Moon Mullins. When we'd get into a port sometimes, the officers go down one gangplank and we'd go down the other. We'd be going down the gangplank and we'd look and there stood old Moon down there. Here he was, full lieutenant, waiting for us, the enlisted men, to come down.
That is awesome.
Oh,
But that's what you guys do for each other, though.
Huh?
But that's what you do for each other.
Yeah. You know, he was like, we were on a strike one time, and you had F6F protections, fighter plane protection for the dive bombers. And there was this one plane that was way up above everybody else. So their commander, group commander, called up and said, F6 number so-and-so, get down in position. No answer. No movement. Jesus Christ, will you get down in position? Jesus Christ, coming down. Oh, he was just a screwball. He really was, but he was a very likable guy.
That is awesome.
Came in one time, his plane was all shot up, and luckily he caught the wire, but the plane hit a number 3 gun turret and went over the side, but the hook for landing caught on the edge of the railing, and there he was in the plane, and just dangling like that above the water. He gets loose from his harness. He shinnies up the tail of that plane, and we grabbed him and pulled him up on deck. And he said, I'm glad to get rid of that damn plane. It wasn't any good anyway.
Did you get a new one, I'm sure?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to wrapping up training.
Okay.
Before you saw any combat, tell me everything up to, describe what you're training. Right, you are now ready for combat.
Okay. Well, we did a lot of what they called ground work. It was practicing trying to land within a given amount of space. And takeoffs, touchdowns, they called it, touchdown and takeoffs. And we practiced that, Lordy, I don't know how many times, but it was a long process. And after you got approved, after they passed you, then you were assigned a carrier.
Now, why would you as a gunner need to be part of the landing and takeoff?
Really, no reason that I can think of other than just to have that weight in the back end so he could tell. That's the only thing I could ever figure out.
Because that's really a pilot's job, is the landing and takeoff.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't directing him or anything.
No, nothing. We were just a passenger. That's it. But when we first landed on that carrier, we were the #1 plane to land on the carrier. And of course, all these guys had never witnessed aircraft landing on the aircraft carrier. So they were all curious as to what was going on.
And these are all the group that you're training with?
No, these were guys on the ship. The air group was completely different from the ship personnel. I never could understand that, but that's the way it was. The commander of the aircraft carrier had nothing to say about the air group. We had a commander of our group, of our air group, that did everything. The ship's captain had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Okay, so when you finished your training, you were then assigned a carrier.
Right.
Okay, and how many carriers would there be?
Oh, it depended on how many losses there were from overseas in the Pacific, and when they take a group and fly them over to Hawaii, and then from there they would take them and put them on the aircraft carriers where they needed men.
So there were maybe what, half a dozen carriers?
Yeah.
Choices somewhere in there?
Right.
And you and your pilot were assigned to which one?
The USS Antietam.
Antietam?
Antietam. Uh-huh.
How do you
That
spell
was
it? What is Antietam?
That's a Civil War battle that turned the tide against the South.
Okay.
Now, when we landed, these guys were all on crosswalks around the aircraft carrier's flat top. And they kept telling them to get down off of there to get below deck. Well, you might as well have been talking to the water, because that's all good it did. So the plane landed, we landed right behind this one plane, and you have a cable that is about, that big around. And it works on hydraulic. It's just like an elbow. It sticks up like this, and then when the wheels go over, it flattens out. Well, the plane has a big hook that extends out, and the pilot has a control that releases that hook so it can come down and catch that wire before you go flying off the end of the deck. Well, I don't know what happened, but this cable broke. And this, it's under high tension. And it come flying back, and it wrapped right around this one kid's neck and popped his head off just like a cork coming out of a bottle. And blood flying all over, everywhere, and he was just like a chicken that had its neck wrung, just flopping all over. And I thought at the time, my God, what am I getting myself into?
And this was your first landing?
That was the first landing. Boy, they didn't have to tell them to get below and get off those deck anymore after that.
Were there other cables subsequent to the one?
Oh, there's 16 cables. And as you go down the line, progressively, they get tighter and tighter and tighter until you get to that 16th one. And then that's like running into a brick wall. And then they have what they call a barrier that's right behind it. That is a bunch of cables that come down, and if the plane breaks through that last wire, it'll catch the plane.
Don't you go full throttle though?
What?
You don't go full throttle?
Oh, no.
Not that.
You got it cut off, but you're still coming in at airspeed of maybe 92 to 94 miles an hour. And sometimes those hooks didn't catch and they bounce. And you just hoped when one of them did that eventually it would grab a wire. But sometimes it didn't, and they hit into this barrier. And of course, the guys didn't get hurt, but the airplane was virtually destroyed. So they just shoved it over the side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have your first landing. You're on your first carrier.
Right.
Describe. Okay, this is your new home for how long?
That's right. We were on that carrier for 2.5 years. We Finally, they got orders from Navy Bureau that they said, get that carrier into Liberty. Now, we'd been out at sea 10 months without ever been having a foot set on land.
And Liberty means?
Liberty means you get off the ship and you go do whatever you want to do.
And where, so you landed there, and how much longer until you had Liberty?
We were there out at sea 10 months, and we went down to Manila, Manila, Philippines. And we were in dock there for 30 days. And then we packed up and went up to clear up north in what they call the Gulf of Poai. That's clear up between Korea and northern China. 35 below zero. And that meant for every 1,000 feet you went up, 15 degrees dropped. I had so many clothes on, because we didn't have heaters in there. I had so many clothes on, they had to boost me into the plane. They said, Monty, you have to bail out. You never make it with all that clothing. I said, hell, 2.5 seconds expectancy if I bail out, so I'm going to stay warm while I'm alive. We used to take water in a pan and run up on the flight deck and throw it up in the air, and when it would come down, it was ice.
Wow.
We had to take all the oil for our machine guns, had to go in and clean them clear off, used kerosene, because the guns would jam because that oil would become so thick because it was so cold that the machine guns wouldn't work.
Wow.
And some of those guys, we'd be up there and we'd be on a strafing run, and don't let anybody ever tell you that the United States didn't fight against Mao in China, because that's what we did. And I've read the history books that said that we didn't do anything, and they were lying.
Well, tell me about that.
Okay, we'd fly and you strafe. Well, some of the guys got out with their machine guns and were strafing like they were supposed to.
What do you mean strafing?
Okay, that means anything moving on the ground, you use it to shoot at. Whether it was an animal, whether it was a human, whether it was a truck or whatever. You tried to hit it. Well, those guys that come back, and the left side of their arm, their left side of their body would be frostbit, because they'd be out there in the air trying to do it. Well, I thought to myself, I ain't that stupid. I'm not going to do that. So I'd roll my hood partially forward, just enough to get my guns out over the side, and I stayed in the cockpit, and I didn't get out in that air like the rest of them were doing. And finally, the rest of the guys started doing the same thing. But I mean, you know, that was stupid. 35 below down on that flight deck, and up there with, I don't know, we were at 3,000 feet, I imagine, or 1,800. 40 below? Well, I'm not setting my arm out there in that.
A little wind chill.
Yeah. Golly.
All right, let's go back to you arrive. Your guy on deck gets decapitated.
Oh.
And tell me about your first week. Where did you live? What was your quarters like? What was your meal? Life on the boat?
There was an aircraft division that was separate from the ship's crew. And we had double bunks. Everybody had a locker. The bunks would be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Everybody got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you didn't go to bed till 10 o'clock at night. We could lie down on that steel deck and sleep like it was the best mattress that existed. But so it was there, and the chow was, again, we were completely separated from the ship's crew. We had our own galley, what they called a galley. That's where they fixed the food. We had our own galley, and we would go in there and have our breakfast and dinner and supper, such as it was.
So you had I get one of the two bunks, and who was your bunkmate? Same one, or is it changed? Or?
No, the guy that slept above me, I was on the bottom bunk, and the guy that slept above me was the name of Alan Shepard. He was from Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah, you were in pretty close quarters, and that meant everybody took a shower every day, whether you liked it or whether you didn't. And if you didn't take your shower on your own, the rest of the crew saw to it that you did get a shower.
Because you just reek.
Oh, yeah. You know, like when we were down the end and we talked 127 degrees, man, you couldn't move without being soaking wet. That island, the tallest point on Anahuac was 28 inches above sea level.
What island is this?
Anahuac,
Where's this?
clear down in the South Pacific, past the international date line.
Like near French Polynesia area?
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, but they used it for supply depot. That's what it was for. But it was so hot, the water, the ocean, you could put your hands on the bulkhead of that carrier down in where we were sleeping, and it was hot. I mean, it wasn't as hot that you couldn't put your hands on it, but you could feel that heat.
From the water?
From the water. That's why we slept up on the top side at the deck. That, and every aircraft carrier has what they call a radio room. Dive bomber group had one, fighter group had one, the observation group had one, and it was air conditioned. And you had seats that a good seat on an airplane, on first class, that you could lean back. We spent many a night sleeping in those chairs in that air conditioning. I couldn't stand to sleep downstairs. It was just so hot you could hardly breathe.
So no air conditioning down there?
Oh, no. Just in the ready rooms, that's all. I have to go back because this is funny. Every radio room had a big freezer. It was a commercial freezer. What a great big thing. Okay, so we're in Hawaii, and you have to qualify to go out into the Pacific, into the combat area. The aircraft carriers had a minimum time for landing dive bombers, fighters, and observations planes. And that was strictly ruled, and you didn't go out in the Pacific until you met that qualification. Well, our pilots were so good that they averaged 10.5 seconds from one plane taking off to the next plane taking off. And the same way in landing.
Landing too?
Yes. We set a record. It was amazing. It was like a big air show. But anyway, we qualified, so we knew we were going out. So we get the idea, hey, why don't we go out and get a bunch of grapefruit and bring them aboard and put them up in that freezer, and then when we were out so long, we'd bring them out and sell them by the slice. So, okay. So we swiped an Army truck, went out into the fields where the pineapples were, and we loaded that truck. Well, what we didn't know was if they had have caught us, there was $1,000 fine for every pineapple you picked.
Wow. Couldn't make your money back that way.
I don't know how we'd have ever paid it off, but we loaded that thing up. Okay, so we get the pineapple in and we get the thing loaded into that big old freezer. we were out 3 months, and we said, okay, let's see what our market is. So we hauled out a couple of them and sliced them up, and we were selling them for 50 cents a slice. Well, we didn't have very many takers, so we put it back. So then when we were out 9 months, we hauled them out again, this time for $1 a slice. We sold every one of them we wanted to sell.
Very nice.
And you know, it's terrible, but our mechanics, our plane mechanics, I don't know where they got them, but they acquired a nickel, dime, and a quarter slot machines, one of each. So when we would fly and go like we were on Saipan, okay, we loaded those things up into our bomb bays and flew in and landed, and we set up our slot machines. My God, the guys were in line for blocks trying to get to play those damn things. Well, our mechanics had them screwed down so tight that there were very little of money made off of them.
Oh, yeah. It's tilted in their favor just a little bit.
You know, they were bored to death. It's a famous old game in the service. Hurry up and wait. And they were waiting. And so they played the slot machines. Anyway, we made enough money off of those slots and selling liquor and selling the pineapples that we rented an entire floor of a hotel in San Francisco and threw a party and said all females come for free. Big time. Man, we had more women than you could count.
All worth it, then.
Yeah, and you know, we paid it off. We had the money, and there was no question about it.
How funny. All right. You're now settled in. You have your bunk. You landed, and you're settling into the carrier.
Right.
Do you do training missions, or do you do practice, or tell me about?
Oh, yeah.
What do you jump right into?
You go right into practicing landings and takeoffs. You know, that's always, to me, it was a wonder of the world, the way they did it. It just fascinated me every time I saw the operation take place. So we practiced that continually, and then we practiced like, we had these sandbags, and if it was radio silence and you had information that the carrier had to have, you wrote the note and put it in a sandbag, and the pilot would come down and swoop across the flight deck, and you'd try to hit the flight deck with that sandbag. And we did that kind of training, and then the biggest thing was the anti-sub patrol. I mean, that was the most boring thing. You'd fly 4 hours out, 4 hours back. And you would report if you saw a submarine. Well, one time, we thought we saw one. The pilot and I both did. We thought it was a bigger world. So he dropped a depth charge on it. It was a whale. We blew it to pieces.
Oh, you see the blood coming out.
But we thought it was simple.
Sure, absolutely.
Couldn't take a chance.
No. So what was your, you know what, describe to me the plane. Where, are you sitting behind?
Yes.
A higher?
No, we're on an even keel. Pilot sits in front. In between us is a radio equipment and a gas tank. And then I'm sitting back here. He has a canopy that can close off his cockpit area. I have a canopy that I can close off my cockpit area. And you have communications between each other, and whatever I'd see that I thought he ought to know about, I would tell him on the intercom.
So describe to me logistically or physically how are you sitting? Where's the gun? How do you see it
Okay.
when you're going?
I'm sitting in a ring. It's a big metal ring that's 180 degrees. My guns are here, and I have a handle that I can pull and swing those guns in a 180 degree arc. You have a canopy that you have to lower in order to get the guns out. Otherwise, they were housed inside of this canopy. And
a canopy is just your cover.
right, right.
Made a glass.
Yeah, right. And so you had to get the guns out and lower that down, and then you could swing your machine guns whichever way you wanted, up or down. And that's the difference between free gunnery and the ones like on a B-17, where they were controlled electronically.
Remotely.
Except for the two side gunners on the B-17. But free gunnery, it's just that. You're on your own. And you have to, we had a choice. We could have either a single 50 caliber or we could have twin 30 calibers. Now, the 50 caliber would shoot 1,200 rounds a minute. The 30 caliber would shoot 3,600 rounds per minute. So I never knew of any of them that took the 50 caliber over the twin 30s.
Because it was an advantage to have
More lead thrown out.
going out, even though it was smaller.
Yeah. And every third shell was an incendiary shell.
What does that mean?
That means when it would hit, it would explode like a big firecracker, like a rocket. And it would hit and it just flame out.
On impact.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.